Hey, I'm Nate Roth with The Verge, and we are checking out the Samsung Series 7 Gamer. Now this thing is big. It's got a 17.3-inch display with a 1920 by 1080 resolution. That's going to be good for your general gaming needs, but it also makes the machine really heavy. It's about 9.6 pounds, and you're going to have to keep it tethered too, because the battery life is pretty poor. We got about 3.5 hours on the Verge battery test. So the Series 7 Gamer sports a full-size keyboard, which is kind of expected on a machine this big, and it's also really appreciated. The keys are traditional scissor-style laptop keys. Now there is backlighting on this keyboard, but the options are kind of limited. Samsung lets you have blue and white. Some other highlights on the hardware end are the speakers, which are pretty good. There's a subwoofer underneath the machine, so the machine has a little more oomph, a little more bass than we can expect from a lot of laptops. Now the port selection on the Series 7 Gamer is pretty standard. You've got your power adapter, your gigabit Ethernet port, a VGA port, HDMI and DisplayPort, a pair of USB 3.0 ports, and there's the card reader up above that, and then your headphone and microphone jacks. On the opposite side, we've got another pair of USB 2.0 ports, there's a Blu-ray drive, and then there's the mode switch. There are 4 modes to choose from. Right now we're in gaming mode, but we can switch down to balanced mode, library mode, and eco mode. Now these are essentially glorified power plans. In eco mode, the screen is dimmed and the power on the CPU is throttled down to give you the maximum possible battery life. Library mode is designed for when you're inside of a library. In addition to dimming the screen a bit, it actually cuts powers to the fans and throttles the CPU, so the machine doesn't make too much noise. Balanced mode is your typical PC's balance mode. It's kind of a nice middle ground. And then there's gaming mode, which I suspect most people will keep the machine locked to. When you fire up gaming mode, a small widget appears on the top right corner of the screen, and it lets you choose between 3 different themes. And the themes are kind of over the top and ridiculous, but they changed the wallpaper and add a nifty little wallpaper themed screensaver to each mode, which it's kind of pointless, but in the best possible way. Samsung's Series 7 Gamer is pretty fast. Under the hood is a 2.3 GHz Core i7-3610QM processor, 16 gigs of RAM, and about 1.5 terabytes of hard drive space. Most of the Ivy Bridge laptops we've seen recently include a 32 gigabyte mSATA solid-state cache drive. Samsung opted instead to use an 8 gigabyte express cache. You're going to see a performance hit to things like how fast your applications run or the boot speed. It also allows Samsung to stick about 1.5 terabytes of storage space in here in the form of 2 750 gigabyte hard drives. The gaming performance is pretty good. The machine's running an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 675M. It's not the fastest GPU on the market right now, but it's a pretty strong contender. We got a smooth 29 frames per second on Battlefield 3 on Ultra. If you dial the settings down to high, you'll see about 41 frames per second. But it feels pretty good. The action is smooth for the most part. When you get into some of the more intense firefights in the game, you might notice a bit of slowdown. You can fix that pretty easily by, dialing down the anti-aliasing settings or even switching to high in Battlefield 3, which still makes the game look fairly gorgeous. If you're in the market for a mid-range gaming machine, the Samsung Series 7 Gamer will not disappoint. It makes some compromises in the performance and the battery life, and there might be some qualms about the particular hard drive arrangement, but for $1,900, it's a pretty solid deal. If you're willing to spend a little more, you're going to want to check out the Alienware M17X. It's going to cost you an extra $700, but you'll get much better frame rates, slightly better battery life, and a better performance overall.